The Chameleon with an Attitude. This is the story of Henry, our pet chameleon. Chameleons are in a class by themselves and are no ordinary reptiles. They are easily distinguished from their nearest relatives, the lizards, by certain outstanding characteristics. A chameleon's tongue is as long as his body, and on his head is a rigid crest which looks like a fireman's helmet. Its limbs are long and slender, and its toes are more developed than those of other reptiles. Henry's most remarkable features were his eyes. They were not beautiful, but his left eye was quite independent of his right, and he could move one without disturbing the other. This gave him a horrible squint. Each eyeball raised out of his head wobbled up and down, backwards and forwards, quite independently of its partner. Unlike humans, reptiles do not have binocular vision. They do not see an object with both eyes at once. Whenever I visited Henry, he would treat me with great caution, sitting perfectly still on his perch with his back to me. But his nearest eye would move round like a beam of searchlight until it had me well in focus. Then it would stop, and the other eye would proceed to carry out an independent survey of its own in some different directions. Henry took nobody in trust and treated my friendliest gestures with great suspicion. Tiring of his attitude, I would tickle him gently in the ribs with my finger. This always threw him into great rage. He would blow up himself up to an enormous size, his lungs filling his body with air. He would sit up on his hind legs, swaying from side to side, hopping to overlay me with his increased dimensions. Opening his mouth very wide, he would let out an angry hiss of resentment. But his process went no further. He did not bite. Non-violence was his creed. Many people believe that a chameleon is a dangerous and poisonous reptile. When I was visiting a friend in the countryside, I came upon a noisy scene at the garden gate. Men were shouting, hurling stones and brandishing sticks. The cause of all this was a chameleon who was discovered sunning himself on a shrub. The gardener declared that it was capable of poisoning people at a distance of 20 feet, and as a result, the entire household had risen in arms. I was in time to save the chameleon from certain death and brought the little reptile home. That was how Henry came to live with us. Henry was a harmless creature. If I put my finger in his mouth, even in the widest moments, he would simply wait for me to take it out again. I suppose he could bite. His rigid jaws carried a number of fine pointed teeth, but Henry was rightly convinced that these were given to him solely for the purpose of chewing his food. Provided I was patient, Henry was willing to take food from my hands. This he did very swiftly. His tongue was short of a boomerang, which came back to him with food or insect victim attached to it. Before I could realize what had happened, the grasshopper held between my fingers would be locked between Henry's jaws. The ancients believed that a chameleon lived on air. Perhaps they came by this belief because of the chameleon's capacity to fast for a long time. Henry once went on a hunger strike and did not take any food for over a month. However, he usually had a healthy appetite and loved a good supply of grasshoppers, flies, and small insects of various kinds. During the rains, when all sorts of winged insects came floundering into the house, Henry would snap them up joyfully. He drank water readily, either by licking up the drops with his tongue or by running his jaws along the edges of leaves to catch the dew. We used to supply his wants by sprinkling the leaves in the cage with water. The best known feature of the chameleon is its ability to change color at will. It is a power possessed by many lizards. The common bloodsucker can change the color of its coat very rapidly, but the chameleon is quicker still. It is impossible to say what color a chameleon is. An individual may, in the course of few days, appear in a half dozen different garbs, not counting mixed shapes and minor combinations, and he was constantly surprising us with his new color patterns, although we thought we knew his complete range of suitings. His most usual workday suit was a mixture of dark brown and green set of a few white blotches along his flanks. If the day was dark and cloudy, he responded by changing to pale green. His night suit was pale, almost sickly yellow. The patterns of the marking depended much on his humor. He gave up his best effects when he was in rage. When properly roused, Henry broke out in vivid red streaks and blotches. The belief that a chameleon adapts its color to its immediate surroundings is true, only to a limited extent. Henry would keep to a dark, almost black livery even though surrounded by foliage or tender green. You can certainly disbelieve the story of Chameleon who, when placed on Scotsman's turtle, burst himself in a brave attempt to copy its brilliant whiz. Only one species of chameleon is found in India, namely the common chameleon. Most species are found in Africa. In captivity, they make interesting pets, but different individuals show different characteristics. Some soon adapt themselves to a new mode of life, but others remain sullen and refuse all food. These rebels should be given their freedom. Henry remained with us for 2 years and was hale and hearty during all that time. But one fresh spring morning, finding his door open, he set out to explore the garden and never came back. I thought I saw him once sunning himself in the rockery, but when I approached, he scuttled away and would not show himself. He had probably found other playmates of his own kind.